Last minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Thanks,
simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to the Peak Physique Podcast with Andre Adams on the NASM Podcast Network.
Hey guys, welcome back to the NASM Peak Physique Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Adams, NASM Master Trainer and IFBB Physique Olympian. Welcome to the new year. It's 2025, and we've got some fresh new topics for you. We're going to kick things off this year with newbie gains. Are they real? What are they? How can I leverage them for my advantage? So let's dive right in, right? I'm going to break down what are the newbie gains and is there science behind this? So first of all, newbie gains refer to that rapid increase in skeletal muscle and strength for novice lifters in those initial stages of lifting. So this could be somebody who's completely new to lifting, or maybe someone who's been inconsistent over the past couple of months, or even somebody who maybe has been in the gym but not under a structured program. So most of these individuals could benefit and experience these kind of accelerated results in those initial stages of lifting. So these gains can be very significant and honestly disproportionately greater than more experienced or advanced lifters for that same time period. And that can be a little frustrating too, right? You've got people that have maybe been in the gym for 3 to 5 years. They know how to train, they know how to get results, and they see the new guy come in and all of a sudden his bench press goes up, 60, 70, 80 pounds in the first year, where you're fighting to, just try and put 5 to 10 pounds on in PR, every few months if possible. So that's one of the things that can occur. And we'll talk about why that happens, what adaptations occur inside the body, and how can we avoid those plateaus. This phenomenon is really a result of the body's adaptation to external stimulus. Obviously that external stimulus in this case is really going to be your resistance training or weightlifting, which creates physical and neurological changes. And that's one of the main reasons that more advanced lifters might see diminishing returns or, less gains over that same period of time is you've already developed those neurological pathways. You've got the mind-muscle connection. And so your gains, if you will, are going to be a little bit smaller than someone who is, just now developing those pathways for the first time. They're going to see a really big initial jump in the neuromuscular control, strength output, and so forth. Some of the main things that would apply to this concept, especially for relatively new or novice lifters, would be GAS principle or SAID principle. If you're an NASM enthusiast, you're probably familiar with these concepts, but GAS is really general adaptation syndrome, and SAID principle is specific adaptation to imposed demands, right? So we're applying a stimulus and we're achieving a very specific output or outcome based on that stimulus. So those are in full effect, especially those first 6 to 12 months of training. And an athlete might gain as much as 2 times more muscle over that same period as a more experienced lifter. This is primarily due to the effect of diminishing returns that we just mentioned, and that overall rate of muscle gain starting to decline slowly over time as you build up this foundation of skeletal muscle. One model that I like to refer to, if you're ever interested in, is looking at Alan Aragon's model. Alan has published a lot of really good work out there if you guys are looking for some more research papers and technical articles, even in conjunction with one of our very own, Guillermo Escalante, who was a contributor and lead SME actually on the PBC course. So Alan's model looks at maximum muscle growth potential, and he breaks it out between beginner, intermediate, and advanced of just some basic guidelines or ranges that you can expect. So for a beginner athlete, we're looking at roughly 1 to 1.5% of lean body mass per month versus intermediate, which drops down pretty much in half to 0.5 to 1% lean body mass per month, or a more advanced lifter who's maybe achieved this foundation of muscle and you're still trying to, continue to build and progress, that cuts in half again to about 0.25 to a 0.5% lean body mass per month in Allen's observations. And just from my own anecdotes and experience as both an Olympian athlete and coach, I can attest to that. That's very in line with what I've seen throughout my own personal experiences as well. So you guys can, sort of wrap your mind around that. And you can even measure the progress like this with a DEXA scan or an in-body or anything that gives you insights into skeletal muscle over that period of time. Now that we've defined it, the next obvious question is, well, cool, it's real, but how can we really maximize newbie gains for physique athletes? And that's where the fun stuff happens, right? Number one on the list, hire a good coach. So if you guys are doing your own training, I always encourage people to do your own research and everything. But when we're really trying to maximize gains, especially in the beginning, we want to make sure that we don't develop bad habits, right? So by bad habits, I'm talking about even lifting form, cues, timing, safety, right? Just making sure that you're doing things in a manner that's conducive to increasing your overall strength, well-being, and movement efficiency. And you don't want to, if you're self-taught, you don't want to learn bad movement patterns that might limit or stunt your growth or cause an injury that really sets you back in those initial phases, right? So definitely hire a good coach or personal trainer, even if it's just temporary, maybe it's for the first 3 to 6 months, but that's going to really help you build that foundation that you need to maximize those newbie gains. The next thing on my list is proper training and nutrition program. So this is where that coach again comes into play. And there's also some really good apps out there for people that maybe can't afford a coach just yet, but really laying the proper framework to maximize your gains. If we're not feeding the body the right types of foods, if we're not feeding it enough food, if our nutritional timing isn't correct, our recovery is lacking, right? It's going to really inhibit your growth. And same thing with training. If you're not in a structured training plan that's really targeting the body in a way that's going to give you a specific physique outcome, then you might not be getting the most out of your newbie gains phase. The next thing that I'll kind of hit on is really just keeping score, right? So you want to measure your progress, measure your pace against the plan. And again, you can use tools like an in-body or DEXA if you don't have access to these. You can go old school with some steel calipers, but and a scale, obviously, right? But something that's going to help you kind of keep score, track your progress, and then fine-tune and adjust the plan as you go. Supplementation, also very important. So that's going to include your micronutrition. Some of the most important ones, especially in the early part of your fitness journey, would be things like essential amino acids, especially high-end ones that are going to be in the right formula, the right ratios that mimic muscle tissue amino profiles. So EAAs, post-workout isolate protein, definitely going to be one of your best friends to boost up your recovery and spike that muscle protein synthesis. Nutrition timing we talked about, creatine, all these supplements could definitely help to accelerate those gains in that initial newbie phase and ultimately help you build skeletal muscle mass and burn body fat, right? That's our goal. The next thing would be prioritizing recovery. This is definitely going to help you get the most out of your newbie gains phase. And if you think back to the SRA curve, which is stimulus, recovery, adaptation, that's going to help you build more muscle. If we're not recovering the body, we could be in a state where we're actually overtraining and it's counterproductive, right? Where we haven't fully recovered the muscle and then we're blasting that muscle again and actually getting catabolic or, just building up a lot of excessive lactic acid and things like this, where we're not really seeing that maximum muscle growth we're looking for. So maximize muscle protein synthesis peaks around your workout. And a couple good supplements we'll talk about later would be things like vitamin D with K2. You can even add some sea salt pre and post workout. That's going to help spike your muscle protein synthesis a little higher. And then really continuing the newbie gains far into the future by prioritizing your consistency and leveraging good nutrition and training framework. Progressions through the NASM OPT model can definitely help. And I prefer to also look at undulating periodization, especially if you've been in like a linear periodization for quite some time. Mixing up the phase of your training. It could be daily throughout the week, or it could be week over week. Either way will get the job done, but this can help you certainly avoid plateaus and really maximize those long-term results. One of the questions that we get quite often, whether it's for a novice lifter or a more advanced lifter, is when to increase the weight or intensity. And this is actually a very important concept for new lifters, because you are going to see those rapid gains in strength and muscle mass. So you might be unsure of when is it appropriate to really increase the loading. And I look at it this way. Start with progressive overloading, just good rule of thumb. Let's just figure 3 to 5% every couple of weeks. There's some good indicators you can use for, your relative intensity and things like this. But a good rule of thumb is 3 to 5% every, let's say, 2 weeks or so. And you can play this by ear depending on your progression, your strength, your recovery, and your overall work capacity, how your body's feeling. A basic rule of thumb for resistance training is to use the maximum amount of weight to maintain your specified rep range, pain-free, full range of motion, and exactly without pain, right? So that's going to be the key rule of thumb when we're talking about how much weight to use and when should I increase. When you're able to hit your specified rep range with relative ease and you feel like you've got a lot more left in the tank, it's time to increase the weight a little bit. Now, if you're training in a hypertrophy phase, 8 to 12 reps, and you're struggling to get to 8 reps and you're starting to see compensations or feel some pain, then that means we're probably going a little too heavy. It's not time to progress the intensity just yet. Now, what things to avoid? Doing too much too fast and risking poor movement patterns that lead to injury, aka ego lifting, right? We've all seen it in the gym, or admittedly, we've all been a part of that. So, you get excited, especially when you are getting stronger in those early phases. You're seeing PRs every couple of weeks, and you try to push the intensity. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just caution and, do the common sense things like protect the joints with proper wraps and make sure you warm up, stretch, take the joints through a full range of motion before you get into your heavier lifts, and then just pace yourself, right? You don't want to get into a situation where you get yourself injured because you went too much too fast. So really focus on building that foundation of muscle. Give the soft tissue, right, the connective tissue like ligaments and tendons, time to catch up before you really blast too much weight. One more thing I wanted to add too, before we get deeper into what to avoid, another good rule of thumb for increasing weight or intensity, you can also look at, when you're progressive overloading, leveraging not just resistance or weight, but also things like eccentric loading and time under tension. Volume, distance can be progressed. Chain loading, right, where it's a progressive overloading as you're lifting. Things like this can also be implemented as another form or way of advancing the intensity without always just relying solely on adding weight to every exercise. So getting back to what to avoid, one thing is really don't waste the newbie gains period with bad coaching or poor fundamentals. I can't stress this enough. We talk about 6 to 12 months on average to really get the most out of those newbie gains. Well, if you mess around the first 6 months and you're kind of self-coaching and you're doing things maybe not to your full capability, you're probably going to waste some of that initial period. So make sure that you take advantage of it. Get a quality coach, get on a structured, well-written program for your diet and your training, and really get the most out of that as you're building those fundamentals. And then commit to good programming and nutrition that's going to lay the framework, help you maximize your results. But, just summarizing newbie gains, are they real? Yes, I do believe they're real. I think that everyone that's starting out can certainly take advantage of this. And it's going to come down to your consistency, your coaching, and really just taking advantage of and making the most out of that initial 6 to 12 months of lifting. And, don't get discouraged too after 12 months. If you start to see this diminishing effect, don't be discouraged by that. Now it's time to look at different ways to avoid plateau, be it through your coaching, again, progressions, or just really looking at more advanced ways of training at that point. So guys, that's all I've got on newbie gains. I highly recommend you to work with a coach, put together a plan, maximize those results. If you guys need help, you can certainly reach out to me as well. You can find me on Instagram at AndreAdams_official, as well as YouTube. Otherwise, you can email me direct at trainingbydre@gmail.com, and you can find me at my website, which is andreadamsofficial.com. All right, guys, we'll talk soon.